So I have a mock interview that doesn't really count for a grade at noon. It is currently right at 10 o'clock. So instead of doing homework like I should do, or starting a book for class or a paper for class like I should do, or prepping for the interview like I should do, I'm just going to film a YouTube video. You may see some cats pass back and forth. The computer may shake. I just can't be bothered to care anymore. This table, if you breathe on it too much, shakes, and I don't have any other means to record besides this computer. And anytime my cats jump on anything, everything shakes. I hate it. Trust me, no one hates it more than me. And then Nimoy is feeling really, really lonely today, so he may jump up in my lap without me knowing it. But anyway, I'm getting really off topic. This was really hard to narrow down. I was originally just going to do 3, and it was 3 I immediately thought of. So it's not like this was a hard decision. But then I thought there were some others I liked too, and I didn't want to do like a top 10. So what I ended up doing is I picked 3 more modern authors, 3 classic authors, and 3 poets. I don't have any like playwrights in here because there's not someone who constantly writes plays that I really like. I love Shakespeare, and my favorite Shakespeare play is Twelfth Night. Followed very closely by Macbeth and Othello. And I love his sonnets. But like, there's not enough playwrights that I can be like, oh yes, I love Tennessee Williams. Oh, I don't love Tennessee Williams. I love certain Tennessee Williams plays, but I don't love Tennessee Williams. And then I thought about plays I've liked doing, and one of those authors is in the classics already. So I didn't want to double dip in the authors in that regard. So I know my camera quality is like a 2006 potato. But you might be able to see in some of my videos that I have Stephen King books behind me. I have the Hodder collection I've started, and it's sort of one shelf worth. These back here are also Stephen King books that I have not read. It's 2 whole shelves of Stephen King. So if you couldn't guess by looking at my shelves that my favorite author is Stephen King, I don't know how to help you. I had to really think. I've tried to put together my favorite thing by them. And so I had to really think hard about what my favorite book was. I love it. I really loved it. I cried. Insomnia, cried. Doomy, cried. I haven't read everything by him yet. I haven't read The Shining. I haven't read Desperation. I haven't read, oh my God, any of that. Pet Cemetery. Any of his short story collections I haven't read. Misery. Like, I haven't read a lot of really big classics that I think I'll like. So at the point where I am now, having read the books by Stephen King that I have, my favorite Stephen King is Needful Things. And this is a fun little cover. I don't have the Hodder version of this yet. This is just the one I have. It's the mass market paperback. And again, I like those. Look at him on the back chilling. Needful Things takes place in a small town, and basically the devil sets up a small little like antique shop and sells people their heart's desires if they'll just do like a little thing for him. And those little things end up being just detrimental to the town. And I grew up in a small town. I'm still in a small town. So reading this was just, oh my God, I was anxious the whole time because I could see this happening. I could see exactly what people these characters would be. I think the sheriff is amazing in this book. I almost picked The Dark Half because he's in that one too. And oh my God, Alan Pangborn is amazing. I would do multiple books reading from his point of view because that is a really good character. But the craziness that happens in this book, and you know it's going to happen, and you can't get away from it because you saw the steps happen all the way up there. You have to just let it play out. It's really, really good. So I think this is going to be my favorite by far. It's got enough of like the graphic horror versus like the anxiety and like build of tension, but just enough supernatural elements to make it, you know, creepy but believable, and the idea that it just keeps happening. Like this isn't a this city alone kind of issue. It's something that just pops up. Was really good. But I think Stephen King overall is one of my favorite authors because of that. His books have a lot of heart. They're horror. They're terrifying. Sometimes they're really gross, but he's got a lot of heart in there. And the characters just, they mean something to you by the end of it. So when people die in his books, it hurts because it feels like, you know, your friend died. So I really enjoy all of his books. I have not met a book yet that I did not like. Oh my God, Firestarter, The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon, they're all good. Even if they're like a slightly different genre, he's so good at it. I don't understand, but that's why he is one of my favorite authors. Another one of my favorite modern authors I got into because I think it was in high school. I stumbled upon the musical based on this man's book and fell in love with it. So of course I wanted to read the book in case there was more information, and because I was definitely not going to be able to go to a Broadway show anytime soon. I still have not seen that show, actually. But I'd probably be disappointed now because I love the music in that, but I love this book, and the author is Gregory Maguire, and the book is Wicked. I read this book once a year for like 8 years. Every year around Christmas, whenever classes would get out, I would pick this copy. I have like 3 copies. I would pick this copy up. This is the first one I ever bought. It was the only one that Books A Million had, and young high school me only bought books from Books A Million because I didn't know that you could get books cheaper other places. It's got, you know, standing on a hill there. But I just devoured this book, and it's way too adult for when I read it, like the time I read it, but I loved it. It's just, I like retellings in general. I can't explain what it is about this one that's good, because I feel like anything I say that's good about this one is something someone else has not liked about it. It is going to be very divisive. You're either going to like it or you're not. I love Wicked. The Wicked Years is probably my favorite adult series, because that's what it is. I mean, it's not young adult at all, but it's probably my favorite like adult book series. When I finished Out of Oz, I sobbed, and there was no one I could talk to about it because no one has read this series. It's so good. It's like philosophical. It talks about religion, and it talks about sexuality, and it's so good. There's so much in this book that you don't expect to be in this book if you only know about the musical. And I'm so glad that I thought to read the book based on the musical, because I love that. I have all the covers that are like this, the like circle cover like that, and I've got like 2 other editions of it. I don't think I have it in hardcover, but I don't know if you can get it in hardcover. That is worth looking into. But this is the first book in my favorite series, and it's my favorite book by Gregory Maguire, but I have like 8 of his books. I've read all of his books except the Confessions of an Ugly Stepsister, which is on this shelf back here. Eventually I'll get to that. But After Alice was also really good. If you've read Alice in Wonderland, like both timelines in that book are interesting, but Wicked is never old to me. I know the plot, I know what's going to happen, I know things are going down, and it's never old, and I always enjoy reading it. I really do need to reread it again. I may pick this up on my Christmas break. I'm going to try to go a little bit faster because I realize I've got like 6 more books after this one. And I do want to make this video a little bit shorter. I don't even put out like a 30-minute video. I love this author. Everything I've ever read by her is amazing. I start reading it and I'm like, this is not going to be as good as I don't like this as much as her other books. And it is. It's amazing every time. Every time I finish a book, I'm like, oh, it's my new favorite. She has a series that I haven't finished yet, but I have read the first one. Again, loved it. I think she has a very distinct writing style that can be off-putting to people, but I loved it. So I had to think, again, with her really hard about what my favorite book was. And I don't have my hardcover edition because I've already loaned it out, but I will show you the paperback of my favorite book by Margaret Atwood, and it's The Blind Assassin. This book's wild. I remember first reading it, and you don't understand what's happening till like the very last few chapters. It is told in multiple timelines, and I'm going to try to remember because it has been since like 2013 that I've read it. It's happening in the present, it's happening in the past, it's happening in the past in a fictionalized narrative, and there's a fake story about the blind assassin written. So there's like 4 different timelines you've got to keep track of, and it's just this lady reminiscing about her and her sister and their family and growing up in the 1920s in Canada. It can be a little bit heartbreaking when you find out things that happened here and things that happened to these sisters. But it is really good, and the reason I picked this one as my favorite is because I feel like if I reread it, I would still enjoy the twists and turns and not knowing what was going on. And also, I'm a sucker for the 1920s and for like memoir style writing, like, talking about your past and discovering revelations about it you didn't know before. But other books are really good. Clearly, The Handmaid's Tale is good. I've never seen the show. I have no interest in seeing the show or reading the Testaments because The Handmaid's Tale is what it is. It's amazing, and it's a nice little slice of science fiction without needing any help. I don't need to see it on screen. I don't need a sequel. It ended where it needed to end in my book, and if she felt led to write a sequel, that's fine. I just don't feel the need to read it. Orcs and Crake is her science fiction series. I have 2 more books to read in that, but Orcs and Crake was really good. It brings up some interesting questions on genetic modifications and stuff, and that is Ludi that's about to jump. Yeah. I'm trying to think, what else I've read? Robber Bride is good. That one, that's got some crazy implications in it. But I've read a lot of her books, and I have a lot of them on my shelf to read too. I think Alias Grace is on my immediate TBR for maybe this summer to read. So I'll look into that. But yeah, I'm never disappointed by something that Margaret Atwood writes, and I highly recommend her all the time. So the next 3 are classical authors that I love. I don't necessarily love the copies of the books and stuff that I have, but that's what I've got. The first one, I have read all of his plays, and I have read his only novel. And while his novel is not my favorite, it is the only thing I have in here to hold up because his plays are in an anthology I had to read for class. I'm not hoisting that brick up in the air. But it's Oscar Wilde. His favorite thing that I've read is The Importance of Being Earnest. But Dorian Gray was also really amazing. There's this book. That man is an awful, awful person. But it's written in such a way that you keep reading because you know it's going to be bad. Like, you know he's going to get his in the end, but you can't help it. You have to read. So he probably could have counted under my favorite playwrights. But I've only read his plays. I've never seen them acted. I've never been in a production. I've only read them, and they are so good with wordplay and just, socio-political takes within the work. And it's so interesting to read them that, if I saw them on stage, I feel like you'd almost be losing something unless you were very aware of how things were spelled and said and what the actions were in the play. So that's the case where sometimes the translation is off in that it's almost like you should read it instead of just seeing it. Like Shakespeare, you almost should see it performed by people who know how to perform it. It's not that it's bad written down, but sometimes you can get lost in the wordplay until you see people do it. So yeah, this Oscar Wilde is one of my favorite classical authors, and The Importance of Being Earnest is my favorite piece by him. The next 2, it's kind of like cheating because I've only really read one thing by them. So to say they're my favorite doesn't seem right, but also I didn't want to leave them out because I do love them so much. And this is another one of those things that I hate the cover, but it's the only cover I have, and that's depressing to me. But it's Charles Dickens, and it's Christmas Carol. I'm a sucker for Christmas. I wouldn't say it's my favorite holiday, but that's because this chunk of the year, October through December, is my favorite holiday. Like Halloween through Christmas through New Year's, get at me. That's my favorite. So I'm a sucker for Christmas. And the fact that basically he invented a lot of the traditions that we have now and brought them to the forefront is just fascinating. The way this was published in its staves, that you had to go and buy the individual pieces of the book, the publication history of this is so cool to me. But I hate this cover. We needed it for class. This is where I've got all my annotations and my bookmarks and stuff. But I don't like this cover. I want something a little bit more bound. I would really like the penguin cloth bound version of it. I think is really cool. But this is going to have to do. This is all I've got of Dickens available. But that's the only thing I've read of Dickens. No, I almost finished Oliver Twist. I say almost because I was reading it on my Kindle while I rehearsed for Oliver Twist, the musical, which I was in. And I didn't finish it because it was tech week and there was no way I could read for fun. There was no time for that. And so I didn't quite finish it. So I think it's on my TBR shelf now, or it may be up here lying to you that I finished it. But that was really good too. Again, his books are hilarious. You don't know until you know, but if you like the Muppets Christmas Carol, you like the Disney version of it, you like interpretations of Christmas Carol, read the original. It's so funny. He's such a good writer, and bringing the humor out in how characters interact and how they talk and just the irony, and it's just so good. Also, fun fact, I could probably recite the entire play by heart because I've played so many different characters in it every year that our community theater does it. I've been Belle, I've been Christmas Past, I've been Christmas Present, I've been Fred's wife. I've been everything but the male characters, and give it time. If I get old enough, I'm sure they'll let me play Scrooge. They need to let me play Christmas Future, though. I need to play all the ghosts, But I could probably recite the play from memory, and this is basically the play. It's really quick read. I may reread it just because Christmas is coming and it puts me in a Christmas spirit. So, but yeah, Charles Dickens is one of my favorite authors just because you cannot duplicate the like humor and heart in Christmas Carol. This one also feels like cheating to put her in my favorite authors, but I love this book so much that I just know if I give any of her other books a chance, they will also be my favorite. And that is Jane Austen. And the only thing I've read is Pride and Prejudice. And this is one of 4 copies of Pride and Prejudice that I have. I have my annotated copy. I have a 1945 hardcover copy in my special collections. I have a hardcover up here on the shelf. And then I have this penguin cloth bound. That's what I'm saying. Like, look how pretty that is. It has a freaking bookmark. It's gorgeous. I love it. And like the inside is just, it's gorgeous. It's pretty. I'm into pretty books. I'm sorry. I'm not apologizing, but I'm a little sorry. My wallet is sorry. If you don't know the plot of Pride and Prejudice, I don't know how to help you. It's kind of well known. It's like the OG enemies to lovers trope book, where these 2 people just hate each other at the beginning. They just can't stand each other. Like, he's uppity and she's opinionated, and her family is a lot, and then slowly through circumstances they end up realizing, oh crap, we're actually perfect for each other and we love each other. It's so good to watch that happen. The side characters are interesting. You're rooting for certain relationships to happen. There's a lot more in this than there have been in like the adaptions of it, even though I love that. And I have never seen the Colin Firth version of Pride and Prejudice because I don't need to. Because the 2005 one is everything to me. I don't apologize for that. I love the 2005 version with Keira Knightley and Matthew Macfadyen, and I don't need to see anyone else do it. I love them. I also like Bridget Jones' Diary. I do like Colin Firth in that one, which is sort of a retelling of that. So that's a good guilty pleasure movie around Christmas. But anyway, this is the only Jane Austen I've ever read, so it makes me feel bad that I'm putting her on my favorite authors, but I know if I pick up the copy of Sense and Sensibility that I've got on the shelf, or Emma, that I'll like those. I started Persuasion a while back, but that was before I had to do school stuff, and you really have to devote some time to Jane Austen to figure out her prose. She writes with a certain point of view that's not often duplicated, where the point of view is third person omniscient, but it's from the viewpoint of one of the characters. So you have to figure out what character is talking at any given time. So that can be a little bit confusing, so you need time to read it. But, I mean, like, I love this book. Like, there's nothing wrong with Pride and Prejudice, so she goes on my list. All right, we're going to breeze through this last section because these are 3 of my favorite poets. I do not have a pretty cover of this book. I'm sure I do at my parents' house. I remember, like, not stealing it from the library. But this is just a Dover Thrift edition of The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. That is not my favorite thing. My favorite thing by him is Cask of Amontillado. And I don't have a copy of that because this is all I've got. So I don't have a decent copy of this book. Edgar Allan Poe is amazing. I was an emo kid in middle school and I ate up his stuff. Oh my God, him writing poems about his dead girlfriends. Loved it. He went through some shit though. Bless his heart. And that's why I've got my little raven up here. I taught the raven a couple weeks ago and I brought my little buddy to put on the shelf with some candles, so that was fun. I think they liked it. I don't know. I might just be weird. But anyway, no, Edgar Allan Poe is one of my favorites. I think his stories are really just kind of threatening in their anxiety they induce. And I think that his poems are really beautiful. I just wish I had a better cover of his books. I wish I had something that looked better than that. But yeah, Edgar Allan Poe is one of my favorite poets. The next 2 are kind of hefty and older. This is the collected works of John Donne. He is one of my favorite poets. I discovered him during my English AP exam in 12th grade, and they put song up there. Sweetest love, I do not go for weariness of thee, nor in hopes the world can show a fitter love for me. I memorized that poem for a voice performance class and cried in class, like reciting it. I just love that. Oh, look up Sweetest Love, I Do Not Go. But people quote a lot of his poems, I think, and they don't realize it. And it's really important to me that he married the beauty of poetry with his religion, and he wrote about God in such like ecstasy. It's very fascinating to read. I I don't think I've read a lot of his prose, but that's why he's on my poetry list and not my prose list, because I think his poetry is gorgeous and I never get tired of reading it. I never get tired of learning more about it. He's also really funny and he's got some sexy poems. So read The Sun Rising and The Flea. The Flea is a classic. Like, he's basically flirting with this girl by being like, our blood's mingling in the flea, so there's no reason we shouldn't mingle, you know, outside of it. So leave it to John Donne to turn a flea into something sexy. Anyway, that's why he's on my favorite poets. Last but not least, I have a big brick of a book, and it is Emily Dickinson, who I love, our little introverted queen. She, again, was really popular with me back in middle school when I was going through that emo phase, and I was like not like other girls, and her poetry just really resonated. I'm nobody. Who are you? Are you nobody too? How can you not love it? Like, it's resonating with that kind of mindset when you're like a kid and you feel like no one understands you, or her poetry understands you. I'm not gonna drink that. She writes about death in a really knowing, unafraid way, and that's refreshing. And I just love the choices she makes in the structure of some of her poems. Things that get capitalized, things are, why are they here? What punctuation is she using? It's just fascinating to me. So I really, really enjoy Emily Dickinson. She's definitely one of my favorite poets. That's it. There obviously could be so many more. I don't have a lot of, I have modern writers, obviously, but I don't have a lot of like young adult modern writers and things like that. And I don't know why that is. I guess it's just because I don't read a lot of young adult, not anymore anyway. But, you know, what I do like, I really enjoy, but not enough to count them as a favorite author. Like, liking one book or one book series isn't enough to count as like, well, that's not true, is it? Because you put Jane Austen up here and you've only read one book by her. Anyway, I'm not going to follow my own rules. It's my rules because it's my list. Those are my favorite authors. This list is subject to change at any time, but it probably won't. Anyway, maybe I'll do favorite books one day, but that one really will break my heart. This was close enough, right? Y'all don't need a list of favorite books. So I'm editing this video, and I know I look like a just disaster. But I was thinking about the Stephen King stuff, and I'm still not arguing with my choice to put Needful Things as my favorite. But I want to mention three other books that could have had that spot, and the reasons why I didn't choose them. I can't decide between 11/22/63 and Joyland as my like ultimate favorite, but I didn't choose those because Stephen King is primarily known for horror, and that's what Needful Things is. Joyland is more of a murder mystery that takes place in North Carolina at an amusement park, and so it has a really nice little place in my heart for being so close to home and mentioning places that are near me. I just love that. And 11/22/63 made me sob openly at the ending, but it's about time travel and science fiction, so there's not a lot of horror elements to it, but both of those books are amazing and I love them. But that's another reason I didn't pick like Firestarter and The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon, because those aren't horror. I wanted to pick a horror novel that was my favorite. So those two are kind of tied. The third one would be The Long Walk, but that one is technically Richard Bachman. So the technicality is that's probably my favorite Richard Bachman novel. It is also, I think, the first Stephen King book I ever read and owned because I bought it on my Kindle. That one also made me cry. So that was just something I was thinking about while I was editing. I was like, you know, you love this one instead. I was like, yeah, I know, but I have reasons. Like, I have to follow my own logic. Anyway, this video is going to be way too long as it is. So if you made it to this section, hi. I hope you're having a good day. I am. I just looked like trash.